Good morning. My name is Brian Gruen, and I serve as the pastor at First Congregational Church of Kittery at Kittery Point United Church of Christ in Kittery Point, Maine. And I wanted to come to you on this beautiful fall day, on this Monday afternoon, to just remind you what God calls us to do. There's only one thing that God has ever asked us to do in order to live our lives as people of faith. But if you're anything like me, especially right now in this season, as school is starting again, as jobs are changing, as the world before us seems to change course every single day in one way or another, as we get so overwhelmed and overloaded with tasks and responsibilities and duties, it can be really difficult to remember what God calls us to do. So I just wanted to send out this video just to offer a reminder, especially for those of you who are like, oh, I got to go grocery shopping and get all this done. I got to get my homework done. I have this new work to start. I have these people to keep in touch with. It's very easy to get overwhelmed and overloaded, and everything that we are trying to deal with goes crashing to the ground. So I'm here to offer a simple reminder about the one thing that God calls us to do. The first time we get a reminder is in the book of Genesis. And it's actually not a reminder for us, but a reminder for God. God says that whenever a rainbow appears in the sky, it will serve as a reminder to God about God's loving covenant with all creation, with everything God ever made. And a few thousand years later, the prophet Jeremiah said to the people Israel, the time will come when all of us will be given reminders of this loving covenant. And you won't have to read about it in a book or have someone teach you about it. It will be written on your heart. All you have to do to be reminded about God's love for you and what God asks you to do in return for that love is to check inward, to check in with your own heart. And several hundred years after that, a man named Jesus of Nazareth came on the scene and said, guys, you don't even need reminders. I'm going to make an announcement right here and tell you God's realm is at hand. Turn around and believe the good news. You don't even need to be reminded about God's love for us or our call to love others, because what Jesus says is the world that God wanted to make is being made right here, right now, with us. I know it's an overwhelming time. I know we all have a lot of learning and adjusting to do, and it can be impossible to know how to keep all these different things up in the air. When we remember that God has only made us for one reason, to receive and give love. When we remember that the only thing we have to learn and teach is love. When we remember that God's realm is at hand and we can live in a heaven on earth right now if we choose. We realize there's only this one thing to do: to love, to be loved, to share in mutual love, respectful, accountable relationships with one another. So the next time you're feeling overwhelmed by everything in front of you, try to remember it's actually all just one thing. You need not be overwhelmed by all the chaos of the world, because God loves us enough to give us a pattern, a way of being, a way to juggle many different tasks and responsibilities by insisting that it's all one thing. Receiving the love of God in our lives, learning how to share that love with others, and trusting that God's love will see us through all things, whether we can keep up or not. Blessings and peace with you this week. And we hope that you'll keep an eye for how our church is learning this new juggling act together in this new era.